So, leaving today, I would like you to understand one thing, why VR will change mental health care. This is a deliberate understatement. I usually use disrupt instead, but since we're not pitching VCs today, let's say change. It's a bit more reserved. Who am I? I'm William Hamilton. I'm a co-founder and CEO of a VR company called Mimerse. I'm also co-founder and working a lot with another VR company called Wobbling. What these companies do and why I founded them is also one of the things I would like you to know at the end of the day. Please feel free to follow me on Twitter @ForeverWilliam if you want to find out cool stuff about VR, or especially in my field, which is particular interest in practical application of VR in the mental health care sector. So, long story short, I don't want to tell my entire life story here, but let's just say I'm really interested in psychology. I've been dreaming of becoming a researcher working with psychology my entire life. And what do these types of researchers look like usually? Well, something like this, maybe, if you're good. If you're Skinner, you're working inside of a lab, testing different testing different conditions, running your scientific studies. And what is the problem for every scientist? Well, you need to have reliable data, right? And you want to do experiments because you can draw the most conclusions from this, preferably if you have a control. What do you want then? You want to test valid conditions, and you want to do this in highly controlled environments such as research labs at universities, like this picture. And what is the best? Well, you can put the animal in this case, so not even working with humans but still studying behavior, inside of a box. This way you can control everything. When I was studying to become a clinical psychologist, I heard about this company called Oculus Rift, which was basically running a Kickstarter site. And it meant that me as a student for a few $100s could go out and buy a VR headset. So I think lots of people maybe think of games or all the fantastic places you could visit, but my first sort of thought was this. Basically, this is the foundation of the perfect tool for studying human behavior. And right now it's not the perfect tool. I mean, as you know, VR is so close to reality that you can actually train skills in a virtual environment, and the skills transfer to real life better than just reading about this or experiencing something through a video or a film. I'm gonna try not to become too philosophical today, but a side note in why VR is special, people I think give this too little thought. In history, you have media, means of communication using symbols or signifiers for real-life objects. So you have a word, you have an image, it represents something in real life. I mean, this picture represents something that's in real life. Word also represents something in real life. You can also do things virtually by creating representations of things that don't even exist. This, I think, is something quite unique for human beings. And VR is next level. It's like a one-up. It's not anymore producing abstractions that represent things. It's giving data to your brain that your brain interprets as something real. I mean, again, this is obvious, but what happens? Well, you experience presence. And why is presence so important? Well, presence, I mean, terminology is quite in a mess right now in VR, but how I define presence is a subjective experience of being somewhere else that can't really be explained. And that is why you have to try VR. It's really, really, really hard to explain what VR is like without trying it, because it's like trying to write about music to explain it to someone who's never heard music before. It's just a new type of media, right? And yes, this is a really cool idea. This is from Star Trek. Sorry, maybe a bit far from the mic I was speaking. This is a shot from Star Trek holodeck. This is a vision very in line with the vision of Ivan Sutherland, who in the 60s invented computer graphics and in a few years later invented the head-mounted display. This device is not the head-mounted display, this is the ultimate display. Ivan Sutherland published a paper in 1968 with this title, basically outlining the vision of the ultimate display, which is not this limited, all of these abstract representations. That's, a way of almost hacking or fooling the visual system and all other senses ultimately to believe that you're in this digital environment. And yes, this is a really cool idea. In the 80s, cyberpunk movement, moving into the 90s, everyone was really excited about VR. You probably know this. In the 90s, no one saw World Wide Web coming. Everyone thought about VR and all of these virtual worlds that we would all live in. And you had a peak of public interest in 1995. But some groups never lost interest of VR, basically. This group, I think you should understand why now, was psychologists. This is a graph of publications containing keyword virtual reality published in a psychology paper database called PsycInfo. This is a graph of Google Trends, search term virtual reality. And probably, if Google was existing before 2003, or is featuring Google at least, it would probably be somewhere up here, 1995. I mean, this was the front page of Wired magazine. I have tons of books written in the early 90s who said that we were all going to live in VR in the end of the 90s. And we don't, and these people are still giving advice on technology to people. Anyway, something's happened here. In the field of psychology, there's always been a niche for working with VR, because psychologists, of course, intuitively understand the value of being able to, in controlled conditions in labs, create exact same, quite complex scenario, but in labs. So you can put EEG, you can put heart rate sensors, you can have all of this stuff on a person that you couldn't have in real life, obviously. And in real life, it would always be a bit different. You wouldn't have the same control. Eventually, clinical psychologists, so clinical psychology is the study of mental illness and how to treat mental illness. Clinical psychologists got a hold of this as well, because as it's turned out, and as it's very clear looking into research, as I did shortly after I heard about this company called Oculus Rift, who was about to make this really cheap, VR has been used in pilot studies looking into how you can use this technology to treat many different disorders. I have not listed them here. This was just top of mind earlier today. And what these studies do is they see if you can get a significant treatment outcome, a reduction of a symptom. It could be anxiety, for instance, or fear of certain objects. And if a particular treatment succeeds in this, it's considered effective, at least in the context of this study. So, at an increasing rate, this research has been done, and this is actually a screenshot from a study, I think, almost 20 years ago. This was one of the first exposure therapy studies using a old school VR system I don't even remember the name of. And this was the type of graphics they were working with then. This type of system costs millions of dollars. It was still considered being worth the time for everyone involved. And so basically you've seen lots of nice outcomes using VR technology. So I started learning to develop this particular developmental paradigm, 3D development, learned about game engines, basically became full stack self-taught game developer. What happened then? Well, I took this today. So actually, this graph is from when I started out. So this is a legit screenshot I used in one of my first presentations at university, trying to see how unique psychologists are, in still believing in this technology. Now it looks like this. So this is Oculus Rift getting purchased by Microsoft. I don't know, this maybe is the HTC Vive release. This maybe is the Daydream announcement. So what has happened? Well, VR is coming back, and now we have this type of event where everyone is trying VR. Not many people have VR, but I'm pretty sure that lots of people will have VR soon. What does this mean? Well, combining two thoughts, you have the thought of Mark Zuckerberg, hate or love Facebook. He's a very successful entrepreneur and has built something, built something very big and very connected, and I think his opinion and his thought is to be respected, and he strongly and firmly believes that this technology is going to be a part of people's daily life. Then, at the same time, you have a clinical psychology professor at a University College London saying that, well, an app could be something like just buying a self-help book, but instead of purchasing a book, you could purchase a self-help VR scenario. And combining these two insights, me and my brother Alexander realized, wow, there's probably not a lot of people who can connect these two dots of having thousands of published studies and the possibility of creating this super powerful self-help stuff, and also really strongly believe in that this is going to become something that consumers have at home. And we thought, well, let's start working with this, and shortly thereafter founded our company, Mimerse. We both dropped out of university. 2 weeks after starting the company, we secured a grant from the Swedish government, 500,000 crowns, and since then we're basically working on creating ways to automate mental health treatment. And this is important. I think lots of people here will intuitively understand when you talk about scale. Again, I'm not pitching investors here, but want to make it clear that right now in psychology, one person treats one other person. It's usually this way. You usually have to go through a very inefficient public healthcare system in order to get treatments that in a lot of cases are very, very good and have lots of evidence and work very well, but if you're lucky to get this, it's very expensive, and that's everyone spends a lot of time on this. I usually say it's like before you figured out that you could learn things without having a private tutor, because it's almost as costly as having private tutors. So what did we do? Well, I teamed up with my professor, Per Karlbring, who is also in the room today. And we started where most cognitive behavioral psychologists start. The most basic thing you can do, the most benign thing. We started this as a company, as you do studying to become a psychotherapist, by treating spider phobia. Spider phobia, I've grown to love spiders a lot. I really like spiders. At first, I was sort of disgusted by them, and this is because a lot of people have a evolutionary response to spiders, which is, according to leading researchers, something that most likely is heritable and something that you're born with. And you can study this by showing small babies who've never seen spiders images of some animals and spiders, and you see a significant difference in their reaction to spiders rather than reaction to fish and monkeys and stuff like this. It's in Sweden, it's a really irrational fear to have. There are no dangerous spiders at all in Sweden, yet lots of people have spider phobia. What happens in psychology is you have a diagnosis, a word like idiot. Idiot was before a term for a certain type of mental disorder. And now it's just a word for someone who's a bit stupid. What this is called, I don't know, shifting of meaning in words. It's happened to phobia as well. Phobia right now, a lot of people, if you ask them, do you have any phobias? They say, yes, I have fear of public speaking maybe, or fear of spiders or heights. People like to talk about phobias. But there is a really big difference in using phobias, the word, this way, and using phobias to signify a quite serious mental health disorder, which is creating anxiety based on irrational fear of objects. And this really creates a lot of suffering for the people who have spider phobia. I mean, an example would be someone not, wanting to go on vacation to visit their parents because they know in this country that there are serious spiders, or selling a house that's been in the family for generations because you don't want to go near the forest where there might be spiders. These are really real examples that I've heard. So what did we do? Well, we created Itsy, an app for Gear VR, a mobile headset. Why did we create it for a mobile headset? Now, why didn't we do like HTC Vive, super high-end stuff? Well, as I said, all of the other research, they found really nice treatment outcomes, but only in these very controlled, specific conditions, inviting each participant into a lab and you try this very novel equipment, and none of this would actually be able to do outside of the lab because it was even more expensive than traditional psychotherapy. So we wanted to test if we could create an automatic game for treating spider phobia and to investigate what kind of outcomes we would get. And just briefly touching on the principle behind Itsy. So a problem inside of a VR headset is you can't control for anyone actually looking at something. So if you have the objective of look at the spider for a few minutes, the person could just, as it is today, point their eyes or point their head at the spider. Me as a developer, I only know, a straight line vector from their eyes. So they could just sit and close their eyes and look at whatever. So we had to get them involved and get them to always pay attention to the spider in order to be exposed to it. Side note, the effective component of spider phobia treatment is usually involving exposure to what you're afraid of. I forgot to say this. So if you want to get less afraid of public speaking, well, you should do a lot of public speaking. And it's the same principle even if you have a very serious anxiety disorder, but you start maybe not publicly speaking, just getting used to the idea. This is what we do in Itsy as well. You begin with not even meeting a spider. You listen to a psychoeducation about spider phobia. You learn what this is, you learn what fear is, you learn what anxiety is. Then you meet your first spider, a really cute one, blue one. Very few people. Our goal was to create one that no one has gotten, would get a fear reaction to, but it would still be a spider. This worked. As you play the game, you gradually move away from the cute spider to this photorealistic tarantula. And what I really like is that we managed to do both a randomized controlled trial where we benchmarked Itsy treatment outcomes, so people only playing Itsy, against people who received state-of-the-art exposure therapy treatment. So two groups, comparing them, both work well. It's still being, in process of review to, probably not even submitted yet, but still, pre-results indicate that our method is very effective, not as effective as traditional treatment, but again, getting tutoring from one person at a time is probably better, but it's just not something we consider worthwhile as opposed to talking to many people at the same time. Why talk to only one person? And Samsung loved our project as well and produced a series of films that anyone who wants can go in and look at on YouTube, where they demonstrated this concept in kind of a non-scientific fashion, but still sort of conveyed this great result that you can get from the app. These people went from basically not being able to be 10 meters from a spider to later the same day hold spider in their hand. And this is expected because you get this type of results this fast from traditional treatment as well. So again, traditional treatment is really good. It's just expensive and not available to everyone at once. And we're not the only one who thinks this is a really good idea. Just got lots of press, but really like TechCrunch, of course, startup. And they say, as I firmly believe, that this type of application has immense value for individuals globally. So this is not only a Swedish thing, this is something that anyone who has access to a device theoretically could download and use themselves. Our vision is of a kind of mental health pharmacy. Like the future mental health pharmacy is not going to be maybe all about drugs. It's going to be about downloading different types of applications, different types of VR programs, both to treat conditions and also to test yourself. Because diagnosing psychological problems today is very hard. It's done by basically asking people questions. If you could test in a highly controlled environment, thousands of people in the exact same environment, you get results that you can compare, and this is really good. People who are schooled in science, again, would understand this concept. And this is what we're building. So basically, we are just creating a bunch of applications. I spoiled one of the applications last time I was here, but basically we've moved on a bit from spider phobia, still going to come back with the sequel to Itsy, but in the meantime creating a relaxing environment for people to forget about pain, because VR has been super useful in distracting especially kids from pain. Like if you're a kid in hospital and you're covered with burns and you have to change your bandages, being able to sit inside of a very beautiful VR world is a lot more pleasant and a lot more feasible than just sitting staring at the doctors or sitting playing a Game Boy, if that even was possible, because you're covered with burns, and you just really need a VR headset. And stay tuned for that. We're doing it in collaboration with one of the largest pharmacies in Sweden, so they like this idea as well. Not only do I do this, I also do VR work for Wobbling, as I said. Wobbling came out of the fact that me and my brother got so many people asking us from all over the place, we know you work with VR for the spider stuff, right? But can you build other applications as well? Yes, we can, and we can build companies as well too. We have now this, tourist picture of Stockholm. This is our office in Stockholm. I mean, this literally is our office. This is our office in Manila in Philippines. And yes, we are going to build a large VR/AR development agency. And we already have the most projects done ever, I think, in VR/AR space in Sweden. I've been discussing things I wish I could talk to you about today with very large Swedish companies who are going to do very big plays into this space. They are not on here, but our biggest client is Tobii Technologies. Tobii has built eye tracking algorithms that work in VR as well. If you think VR is cool right now, wait until you try VR with eye tracking, where you can interact with the world using your gaze. Wait until you try the ultra field of view head-mounted displays that they're working with as prototypes. This is incredible stuff. And if you want to come into this space, if you want to work with the best developers in the game, and you want to build something that's worthy of your multi-billion-dollar enterprise, sell to other multi-billion-dollar enterprises, get in touch. Or maybe you just want to collaborate with me, because what I really like to do is create this fun new treatment apps. This is really going to change mental health care. I hope you understand why. I mean, we've only done the most obvious thing we could do, which is basically take something we know works in real life, something we've seen in research works in VR, and just create a consumer product out of it. But in the future, people are going to treat themselves and do VR experiences and AR experiences. I feel every month growing disability of trying to separate these two technologies. But anyway, this is going to be huge, maybe not thanks to us, but maybe thanks to someone else, maybe thanks to us, or everyone just helps, and you come and help me, so thanks. And if you have any questions, feel free. I mean, we have this panel later today. Maybe ask questions there, or if you have anything like this, if you have anything specifically related to this application, or me in particular, not maybe the entire field, ask them now, or you could save the question later. Applause is good too.
Okay, thank you, William. And if you have any questions, as you said, contact him after in the pause. That will just be after.